Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Franchise Tag Overtime. I am Gareth Smith, and today I'm joined by a very, very special guest in the former Green Bay Packers, Dallas Cowboys, and my Dolphins safety, George Teague. How you doing, George?
Man, it's great, man. Thank you for allowing me to come on and speak with you for a little bit, talk about these Dallas Cowboys.
It's a tough one for myself, being an Eagles fan as well, to know that I'm getting a former Cowboy on. Particularly bearing in mind when I think of you as a player, there's one moment that sticks out very, very clearly involving the star in Dallas, for example.
Yep.
But obviously, as much as you play for them, I honestly, that kind of thing, as someone who likes defenders, that kind of stuff I love to see. I'm not going to lie. Um, so obviously, thank you very much for your time today. It is truly appreciated. Obviously, as you can tell by this accent, we are a British show, which the sport has grown massively over here in the last decade or so. Obviously, it was around when obviously you were playing, but nowadays, when you compare to how the growth of the game is to then, how it impressed you with how wide the game has now gone in regards to where fans are?
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool because I actually got to start to see some of the growth. A lot of people. So there was an organization called USA Football that was
Right.
started here, which is different for us. We don't ever say that necessarily, but it was a way where I was a part of a group where I got to travel into other countries to teach people how to play football, sometimes on military bases, but sometimes not. So I'd been over to Korea and you know, just hitting the parts of Asia, and it was really really fun. So to be able to see um, the growth like this, it doesn't really surprise me. I think the NFL does a tremendous job of trying to get that
Mm.
outreach. Man, how many games are they going to have overseas this year?
Well,
Oh,
you've got Brazil, one in Germany, and three in the UK. So that's five this year, which is bearing in mind, obviously, Brazil's a brand new market as well. It's so impressive seeing, obviously, being a Brit, knowing that we get 3 games a year is massive because obviously it doesn't matter who comes over here, the atmosphere is always good. It's fans of different teams are mixing and chatting. Bearing in mind, obviously, I'm a football fan in the UK, and fans of, say, for example, Liverpool wouldn't be socialising with Manchester United in a stadium, for example. Whereas when I go to the games in London, I'll be having a good chat with a Cowboys fan. I'll be chatting to Giants fans because, oh, bless them. They've suffered for a while, and even like Commanders fans, but there's never any trouble. Which, as a football fan in the UK, I find that quite interesting to see. Um, how much do you wish that you could have been able to play over here in front of these fans that we have over here?
yes. It will be fun. So I only had one opportunity to actually play. So when I played with the Dallas Cowboys, we did go play in Mexico.
Hmm.
Um, that was once. That was early on in the beginning. I did play in the Japan Bowl when I came out of college, but I never played obviously over in UK. That would have been fun because it's a beautiful country, by the
Yeah.
way. And Gareth, I have to tell you, man, you're saying that you're getting along with your Cowboy fans or whatever over there. If you were here in the United States, it ain't gonna be happening like
Oh, I can
that.
imagine. I can imagine. Like, because I went to New York this year, and I found it really odd that when I was in New York, there was a Philadelphia Eagles bar in New York, and there was a Dallas Cowboys bar in New York. I thought, what is going on? You would never find that. Like, I just found that such an odd thing. Why am I in a Philadelphia Eagles bar in New York?
Anything
Just
for money. Anything for money.
yeah.
If you want to buy it from they'll do it. But it's really good. I think as a player though, the structure that you would have to have for the game, and not structure, the itinerary would really be hard because I just know
Mhm.
traveling over there and the way your body feels, it takes some acclimation to when are you sleeping, how are you not, and so that part kind of um, I don't know. I guess it kind of hits me a little bit to say, man, how do they really prepare for that? Because that first day of practice or walkthrough, I'm sure is terrible.
I can,
Um,
yeah.
unless they're teaching them how do you sleep on the plane, where do you go? Then you got to get accustomed to eating. The bed's probably not as big as they need to be for these guys. The shower probably too small, whatever. So there's so many different things that got to happen to be comfortable. And so even when I watch it on the game, when we were watching it like 8 in the morning or whatever time the game was coming on over here in the States, you could see that the level of play was just different because I attribute it to the time clock, that their body clock was probably still, you know,
Yeah.
2 in the morning or something for them.
And it is because obviously the games are a lot earlier as well. I think they're there early morning games when they're shown as well. And because obviously it's 2 o'clock our time. So I'm pretty sure it's like when Jacksonville play, I think it's 9 o'clock in Florida when they're played. So you're talking really hours of a morning to be getting up to play a game. And obviously it takes a lot to get hyped up sometimes for some of these games. So I can appreciate that would be a lot difficult. So obviously I want to talk about obviously the Dallas Cowboys because obviously they are, as a team, this offseason had an interesting one.
Yeah.
Whether they decide to keep Dak or not, whether they keep McCarthy or not, whether they even decide when they pay CD, when they pay Micah. How are you feeling about the Cowboys going into this season at the moment?
I'm a little worried, actually, mainly because, well, a couple things. And Jerry doesn't necessarily do it. There wasn't a whole lot of free agency stuff going on, right? So I know he caught a lot of flack for not making any moves, necessarily not any significant ones anyway, and getting ridiculed of saying that he's all in and all that kind of stuff. I wasn't necessarily worried about that. Now it's to the point now where it's time. CD Lamb is holding out. What is that going to look like? Micah came to camp, but he's kind of parsing words on, he's got to get his as well. So I don't know what he's going to do in August. Dak, no one thinks he'll hold out, but he's holding the cards. What if he doesn't show up? So I'm kind of sitting back like, I don't know, man.
And it's going to be an interesting one, obviously, because the NFC East is one of those where no one ever retains the NFC East. It's one of those things that just happens. It's an odd division that no one ever retains. How impactful do you think it is watching a team like the Eagles suddenly get a lot stronger while Dallas don't seem to be making the same moves? How much does that add to the worry, do you think?
Well, it worries a lot because just like I'm sitting here on your show, and I know you're an Eagles fan, that kind of bothers me a little bit. So, so when you got the Eagles making moves, signing their people, you're like, man, we can't be doing this because there's so much chatter amongst us as fans, and I'm a fan too. Even watching the Commanders, what they've done, new coach, their guys, they've made some pretty strong moves. You go, man, they could be pretty good. Giants, I don't really know, about them. But the Eagles are something to deal with when you still have Jalen Hurts, Devontae Smith, what's the other one? AJ Brown. They still got running backs. I mean, they're going to be good if they fix their defense. Well, you guys can play a little bit better. But other than that, man, I hate it. I don't like just being stagnant because it doesn't look like we're doing anything to try to make the next level.
And obviously, you mentioned the defense there, that the defenses in the NFL obviously are a lot different from when you played, mainly because obviously there's a lot of rule changes from when you were playing. How much more difficult do you think it is to potentially be a defender now, knowing, okay, I'm going to hit this guy, but I can't hit him too hard because then I'll get a flag. Like, that seems to be a lot more of a problem, particularly when you hit that guy who's always protected anyway. That the guy who likes to throw the ball, the quarterback, the most protected guy on the pitch anyway. Like, how much more difficult do you think it would be to play as a safety now compared to due to those aspects?
Oh yeah, it's a lot harder. There would have to be a lot of adjustments from a player like me or whatnot because, I mean, they just implemented the rule of the no more hip tackles. The side tackles when you're going down. And I get it; it's all in safety or whatnot. But at some point, we got to be able to hit somebody. Now it was first, don't hit him in the head, get a concussion. There's always the bro code of you're not supposed to hit him in the knee. So when you took out the head, then guys were going down low, and then then you get mad at each other like you got to hit here. Um, but they duck their heads or moves, and it just makes it almost impossible to try to tackle effectively, like we're accustomed to it. And I think if you watch the film, Garrett, there's a lot that I try to see with that where guys aren't even trying to tackle. That's why the scores are so high. They're just worried about I'm going to get fined 40,000, 50,000, something for that. So it's difficult. It makes the game maybe exciting because you score points,
Mm,
a lot more points. But from a defensive standpoint, we're like, golly, man, you're protecting them too much. Those guys make a lot of money. And I say
mm.
this on offense too. They make a lot of money. You got wide receivers now making over $30 million. Um, they deserve to get hit. If you want to come across the middle, you need to get hit. But that's just my
And
take.
And bearing in mind as well, obviously, these it's hard for a defender because obviously I watched the Eagles last year in the second half of last year. We didn't know how to tackle anyway. It was horrific to watch, and obviously you mentioned some guys probably don't know how hard to go in. But no, I think ours was just really bad tackling by our players last year, which was horrific to watch. But obviously, your career, you had a stellar career. You played in some iconic cities, not just for Dallas. You also played for Green Bay, you played for Miami. Um, how do those fan bases differ when you're between each one? What would you say the strength of each fan base would be?
Oh yeah, and they are very different. So Green Bay, I'll start with them first. I think it's more you got to think college town, American college town for sure, um, or maybe even more like European soccer or something. A lot of locals, a lot of stuff that are just this is our turf, this is our area, so everything's behind it. They shut the city down essentially on Sunday in Green Bay because everybody goes to the game and not necessarily to the bar or the restaurant because everybody's pretty much keyed into the game. So that was different.
Hmm.
Really connected to it. Going to Miami though, opposite. Just um, nobody's from Miami. It seems like they're all their implants are coming in. They're retirees. They kind of they care, but not really. So the atmosphere is different here in Dallas. More starstruck, maybe a little bit more um, upper class in the stadium. Jerry
Mm,
creates an atmosphere where you can get on the field with the players, before the game. You're down, very corporate, a lot of suits down
yeah.
there before the game, a lot of money, oil money, and all that kind of stuff standing around. Doesn't mean the fan base isn't good. It's just different when you go. But when you get up in the stands, then you got the normal fan,
Mm,
just die hard for that. So it's just different in the city, though. Um, because even here, I got to deal with. I mean, when you're in Green Bay, you didn't have Minnesota Viking fans living there. Here, though, I got to deal with Giants, Eagles, Patriots, everybody because they're all living in the area.
yeah, I can imagine obviously any of the, and obviously with that Dallas, obviously part of Texas, and Texas is a massive football state. When you think there are a few states when you think of football, and Texas is obviously one of the big ones. How important do you think, obviously, not only because obviously I know you are massively into college as well as how important is football, would you say, to the state of state? Because for any British fans that don't understand that have the size of and the impact that football has on that state.
Yeah, no, football is it's incredible. It is the driving force of all sports. Now, we're playing a lot of stuff, but we have high schools. So high school for us is 9 through 12 or whatever, ninth
Yeah.
grade, 15, 18 years old. They have, we have stadiums that seat 20,000 people or something on a Friday night to watch it. We got a school right down the street. It's called the Allen Eagles. They spend $100 million on a football stadium. It's only
Wow.
football. They don't play soccer in it. It's crazy, right? But there are a lot of places like that around here. You can go into other states. There's no pro teams like in Alabama. It's
Hmm.
Alabama, Auburn. You still got 107, $108,000 to come watch a college game. Um, and it's a lot cheaper. So it's a big deal here for what happens on Friday nights for football, because that's when we play here for high school football. It's unbelievable the amount of coverage and the rivalries, the fights, and all the other stuff that kind of happens, even with high school football.
And obviously, you mentioned Alabama there, which again was a big part of your life, and obviously, it's a college you're always going to have a soft spot for. How was that going to Alabama? Do you feel changed that your life as a result?
Oh yeah, it definitely it impacted me as a person, impacted my family. Now I didn't grow up being an Alabama fan. I need to make sure I tell you that because my dad was in the military, so we moved around. I was born in Michigan, and we moved all over the place, including out of the country. Just settled in Alabama. So to get to Alabama on a full scholarship was like a dream come true for me. Didn't have to pay for school, and that was really just the driving force at the time was, hey, get your education paid for. It just so happened that I had good coaches and good players around me that gave me the opportunity to get to the National Football League. So I absolutely love the place, though. When I went to school there, probably the largest capacity we had was like 80,000 or something like that, which is it's hard to even tell you what that feels like to play in front of. When you're 18 years old and you're young, it's crazy. But now, the stadium seats over 100,000 or so, and it's, lights and sound and music, and it's even different just going back. So it's definitely a great thing for me to go to Bama.
And obviously, it's just that when you hear those numbers, because bearing in mind, I think our national stadium's like 80 odd thousand. To hear that that's just what student athletes are playing in, it's just those numbers are just mind-boggling. Because bearing in mind, there's not many Premier League football stadiums are hitting the 80,000 mark. So it's just such incredible to hear those kind of numbers. And obviously, Alabama is something that you obviously are still very passionate about. And obviously, your podcast, which you can see the banner there to the side of you, Teague Takes, where you obviously talk about college football in Alabama, college football. Do you want to talk us about how that podcast came about?
Yeah, kind of a unique story that actually my wife, her name is Consuelo. And I have two kids. My son's name is James. He's 30, and my daughter's name is Jada. And we wanted to do a family podcast, really just talking football, having some fun. Me and JT know a lot of football. The ladies not necessarily as much. So we just want to have roundtable talk, have some some jokes and stuff. And it led into where we started to migrate more into seriousness. People started really wanting to see film and understand how to play the game. What was that really look like? So JT and I kind of took a spin of it, and now we actually break down film. That's kind of our niche on Teague's Take, where we'll show college film. It's primarily Alabama, as you said, but now we're talking about what is it. So, like the last one we just had was, what is the new kickoff rule going to actually look like in the pros? Because that's going to be different, trying to do that. And so we had a kicker coach come on, and he's showing us how he's teaching the guy to place the ball, which I would imagine you guys would kind of like over there if you're really thinking about how you guys use your feet in your games of soccer or football. So we spend a lot of time on that. On Wednesday nights, we go live on YouTube at 8:15 my time. That's probably way in the morning on you guys. That's probably like 2 in the morning. For you guys, we're just there for you to watch. They're recorded. So if your people will go to Teague's Take on YouTube, you can see what we do.
And to be fair, being an American football fan in the UK, we become feral anyway, staying up till stupid o'clock in the morning, watch like the Super Bowl things on till 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning for us. So it's a dedication to a cause to support this sport, I tell you. But obviously, you mentioned obviously the new kickoff rule. Then obviously, I spent a lot of time. I think we had the most watched shows around the XFL last season in the international scene, which was interesting. And obviously, that was something that they were doing a bit of last year. So it was interesting to see because you saw a lot more big runs to not necessarily to the end zone because they seem to get stopped, but they remind me a lot of rugby when you have rugby league, particularly where you have these big kick-ups and then you have these big long run returns to about the midfield. So there's very reminiscent of that. So you think we should see more teams starting around the 40-yard, the halfway line kind of thing, compared to, all right, you're on the 25. It should hopefully do that. From what I saw in the XFL last year, it did do that a lot more so. And it'd be interesting, obviously, with the athleticism and the next level up of NFL players, what that then looks like. Because don't get me wrong, the XFL last year was good, but it's not the NFL, if you get what I mean.
No.
And
That's right. That's right. And they're not going to put it, the XFL won't put in as much time. So what we gathered out of most of that is now kickoff return is going to be more like an offensive play. They're going to have designed runs, and they have more time in the National Football League than in the UFL, because, those coaches are there year round. So we're going to see runs, traps, counters, different things where they're trying to be set up something. And they've already had to start working on this. So it's going to be a little bit better based upon what it's going to be very interesting. Maybe it's safer from a standpoint of guys running to each other, running each other 40 yards apart. But the scheme part, I think, was really going to be cool to see how a special teams coordinator designs a designed run, in that small little area where they're able to catch the ball.
It's going to be interesting as well. So obviously we've got a Welsh rugby star has gone to the Kansas City Chiefs, for example. You do wonder whether his abilities on the laterals, whether that would become something we might see on some kick returns, whether they design these crazy plays that no one's ever seen before, utilizing the skill set of this rugby star, because obviously he knows that in a rugby terminology, if you got your mate running there, you are literally to the side ready for a pass at any given moment. You do wonder whether anything like that might creep into the NFL. And it's obviously a copycat league. If the Chiefs do that and it's successful, every team will be taking a rugby player for that very purpose.
I think it's dangerous, honestly. Anytime you put the ball in the air other than on a forward pass, it could be crazy. That's one thing that's pretty different, and particularly if you're down on your deep end of the field.
Yeah.
I have to say that rugby is it has to creep in a little bit, at least by the way that you hit and tackle.
Yeah.
So it's been a big focal point over here on how where you putting your head, or you hitting your shoulder. And I actually met with a lot of rugby people when I was coaching high school football. We were trying to implement some of that stuff, and there were just too many different scenarios that make it harder in American football than rugby, because you can tackle from the side or from behind. We can't necessarily do all that stuff in rugby. But when you're talking about this kickoff return, anytime you ladder the ball, I think coaches, their hair stands up on the back of their neck, because if you drop it, it's a live ball. And these guys are moving pretty fast. And when you can get blindsided, that even makes it more dangerous as far as dropping the ball, not necessarily hurting yourself. But when you go like this and someone's at your knees or something, whoo, man, that's scary as a coach.
And it is the transition, to be fair, is quite interesting as well, from a player from one sport to the other. Because as someone, I played rugby, as you probably imagine, being on these shores, and I retired from playing that sport. I thought I'll give American football a go, and thought I'll play O-line. How hard can that be? My word, it's a different world. Like it's like the next day, I felt like my quads were going to explode, because you're basically in a squat up constantly for hours on end. And I thought it's easier. It's rugby. I'm used to just going, whereas it's amazing, even those guys that you don't think are doing anything overly skillful, that when you watch the elite players in those O-lines and the trenches, the level of skill that they have to do that at that level is absolutely phenomenal. And you gain a sense of appreciation when you try a sport that I think more people over here should try the sport, just to see that no matter what position you play, there's an air of technicality and difficulty that you don't really think exists. Even right down to when you think of the safeties and the quarterbacks and the ball hawks, basically the anticipation to know where that ball's going to be and get it. It's such a technical sport, no matter what position you play, is what I'm trying to say. There's no like, that's an easy position. There's an air of difficulty to each one and a subtlety to each position that is very not appreciated until you actually try it, I think. And just shows how good those guys are. And players like Jordan Mailata, who has transitioned, what that transition looked like. So obviously we're going to go back one last thing before we let you go, and I will let you go on with the rest of your day. Obviously, you play for 3 teams that last year did all right, but 3 teams I think again that will all be wanting to be involved in the end of season mix up. What are your predictions for Green Bay, Dallas, and Miami this season? Putting you on the spot here to finish.
Yeah. I think Green Bay. Well, you actually got, and this some of our Cowboy fans might not like me for saying this, but Miami, they keep reloading too. I think they fell out short last year. I don't know why, because they were loaded with talent. And I know that Miami went and added a tight end. And I think they picked up another running back or something. So they're so fast. And you've alluded that these guys are so fast. That beats on people. Now that they have another year of this, Tua's getting himself in shape, I think they're going to be pretty good. They're a playoff team. I don't think that they'll be in the AFC Championship, but I think they go maybe 1 or 2 rounds in the playoffs. Green Bay is the tricky one. Green Bay is
such a young team, aren't they? Such a young team, and so exciting. But you just wonder when.
Well, Jordan Love, man, everybody was sleeping on him and trying to figure that out. But what he did against our Cowboys last year and the way they ran the ball, I was kind of shocked that they got rid of Aaron Jones. So that I know they brought in another running back, but that's the one that I think they have a chance. But I'm going to put the Detroit Lions in front of them. Because I think that they're going to be pretty good as well. So I'm going to put them as number 2 in their conference. The Dallas Cowboys, and I got to say that, speaking to my old Eagles fan here, right?
I'm just waiting for you to say it.
No, man, I'm a realistic guy. I don't think we win the division. I don't think we've done enough to do that. Our wild card is actually not a player, it's Mike Zimmer. How good can he get this defense to play? I went and looked, and I think they can win. I think we can get into the playoffs. And I know we're ranked pretty high, power ranking, but I think there's just too many variables that can go bad. I don't know if we did enough to get enough linebackers still, or maybe secondary folks. So I think we're still going to be a little bit weak in the back end, and our division is loaded with wide receivers, and good quarterbacks. So I think that we make it in, but I still don't think we make it to the NFC Championship this year with the Dallas Cowboys.
And obviously, it's one of those things. Obviously, it's document how long it has been since the Dallas Cowboys have made it to the championship game and the Super Bowl. What do you think that they need to do to get over that at this point? Because obviously 30 years is a long time. I support Liverpool. We took forever to win the Premier League, having not won a league title for 30 years. Like, what do you think they need to do in that organization to get over that hump to like make it so they get to the big game?
The way football is going now, I think you need 2 big time people on offense, 2, and I'm non-quarterback. So we got CD, but I don't know who the second one is. That you're going like, man, that dude. It's not Waddle and Tyreek. It's not AJ and Devontae and a running back. Our running back is, we're just kind of there. You got CD, but the tight end's not really, so I think we have to have that. You can get you got the one guy on defense. You might need another one in the secondary. Maybe that's Deron Bland. Maybe Deron Bland ends up being the big name person in the back end, and then you got Micah up front. That's okay. But until we get another truly dynamic person on offense, I think we struggle. That was the truth. I told you the truth.
I know, honestly, appreciate it, because obviously I've got a friend who's a Cowboys fan, and he goes the other way all the time. Every single year it's Super Bowl, and there's obviously there are those elements in every fan base with the delusion of grandeur. But we allow him, particularly because obviously he is a Cowboys fan, so it's almost become like a running joke at this point. Is it Super Bowl this year? But honestly, do appreciate your time today, and obviously make sure anyone watching this across, because as much as this is out on millions today, we will be pushing this out on YouTube ourselves and Twitter and all our other outputs at some point. I think tomorrow, it goes. Make sure you do follow and go to Teague's Takes on YouTube and get watching, because end of the day, any way to analyze game film is always interesting. I'll be honest with you, we've got one of our guys who's massively into college ball. I guarantee if I'd say you're analysing game film, he will be all over that, because he's almost like our college guru within the franchise tag. So I guarantee he'll be all over watching, particularly from your point of view as someone who knows
a lot
the
of
game.
Fans from over there. And Gareth, can I say this before we disconnect? Because this is fun for me. We're talking about. So I'm going over to Belgium in next month in July. This will be my second month going, because me and my son, we actually host a football camp over in
nice.
Belgium. We started last year. This will be our second year doing it. So we get players from France, Germany, and obviously Belgium. It's done by the Mons Knights football program.
Yeah.
And so, being able to talk to you about this is really cool, because I like it because I get to go and we talk about the things that you're talking about. How do you really run an offense? We're working with the coaches. We're doing clinics and those things. So it's really cool to do that. I get a lot of experiences just to visit another country. And I learned a lot about Belgium last year, because doing what we would normally call a water break, they were drinking beer during the break time. So it was a culture shock for me a little bit.
That's a rugby mentality as well, to be fair. But to be fair, if you ever get as well over in the UK, I don't know if you've seen much on the NFL Academy that we have over here. We chip in to the UK players from all around Europe and around the world. They come to Loughborough, UK, and they have a really good, strong football education. And the aim is to get these lads into colleges in the States. And we have had some success stories in recent times, players going out to some of you, like out to Tennessee and to like great, like good level schools. So that is a massive growth going on in the UK at the moment. The NFL Academy is such a pinnacle for the international, getting those lads used to what it means to be a footballer and that mindset. And so if you ever get a chance to check them out, they are well worth a watch, because some of these guys are going to go on to have. There's one lad who has just gone out. The lad who went to Tennessee, he's a defensive lineman. His wingspan is like 7 foot or something ridiculous. Like that, he's basically an albatross at that point, and he was with that kind of wingspan. He was spotted in Nigeria by OC, the former New York Giants player, and he brought him to the UK, and now he's over in like Tennessee playing as like I think he's on the edge, I think. But he's just one, and there's a few of them gone over, but each year we're seeing more and more. So the growth of the game internationally, and having people like yourself come into Europe, sharing that expertise, sharing that knowledge, sharing the thought process, that what goes into the position is so important for that. So only thank you for what you do for the growth of the game internationally.
Yep, I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for having me on, and I appreciate what you guys do. And I don't know, one day we'll be over there. Maybe I get a chance to meet you. That'd be cool.
Hey, if you're ever in the London game, give us a shout. We'll always you get to see what it's like from our world. See the slight difference. You will see Cowboys fans chatting to Eagles fans, and it'll be normal. It'll be weird. But no, thank you very much for your time. Obviously, thank you everyone listening at home. We will be back again with another very special guest soon.